On this day in history, July 12th, 1817, Henry David Thoreau, American essayist, poet, and philosopher, is born. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, going over the history of the philosopher and featuring narration from my friend Oswald.
Henry David Thoreau, born 1817, died 1862, American recluse, essayist, and writer born in Concord, Massachusetts. July 12, 1817. To Thoreau, this conquered country contained all the beauty and even grandeur that was necessary to the worshipper of nature. He once journeyed to Canada, he went west on one occasion, he sailed and explored a few rivers. For the rest, he haunted Concord and its neighborhood as faithfully as the stork its ancestral nest. As a boy, Henry drove his mother's cow to the pastures, and thus early became enamored of certain aspects of nature and of certain delights of solitude. At school and at Harvard University, he in no wise distinguished himself. Though he was an intellectually receptive student, he read widely. He was, however, proficient enough in Greek, Latin, and the more general acquirements to enable him to act for a time as a teacher. But long before this, he had become apprenticed to the learning of nature. When he was only 12, he made collections for Agassiz, who had just then arrived in America. Thoreau gave up teaching and became a lecturer and author, though it was his labor of his hands which mainly supported him through the many years. Professionally, he was a surveyor. He had arrived at the conviction that the less labor a man did, over and above the positive demands of necessity, the better for him and for the community at large. He would have the order of the week reversed, 6 days of rest and 1 of labor. In 1845, he made his famous experiment of Walden. Desirous of proving as the nest-building bird, Thoreau retired to a hut of his own construction on the pine slope over against the shores of Walden Pond. A hut which he built, furnished, and kept in order entirely by the labor of his own hands. During his 2 years in Walden Woods, he lived by the exercise of a little surveying, a little job working, and the tillage of a few acres of ground which produced him his beans and potatoes. He would read considerably, wrote abundantly, thought actively, if not widely, and came to know beasts, birds, and fishes with an intimacy more extraordinary than what was the case with St. Francis of Assisi. Birds came to his call and forgot the hereditary fear of man. Beasts lipped and caressed him. The very fish in the lake and stream would glide, unfearful, between his hands. His Walden, 1854, the record of his fascinating 2 years' experience, must always remain a production of great interest. Some years before Thoreau took to Walden Woods, he made the chief friendship of his life, that with Emerson. He became one of the famous circle of the transcendentalists, always keenly preserving his own individuality among more or less potent natures as Emerson, Hawthorne, and Margaret Fuller. From Emerson he gained more than any man, alive or dead, and though the older philosopher both enjoyed and learned from the association with the younger, it cannot be said that the gain was equal. There was nothing electrical in Thoreau's intercourse with his fellow men. Although he absorbed intensely, he gave off no spiritual sparks. With children he was affectionate and gentle, with old people and strangers considerate. He loved his kind as animals, but did not seem to find them as interesting as those furred and feathered. In 1847, Thoreau left Walden Lake abruptly, and for a time occupied himself with lead pencil making, the paternal trade. He never married, thus further fulfilling his policy on what one of his essayist biographers has termed, quote, indulgence in fine renouncements. At the comparatively early age of 45, he died, May 6, 1862. His grave is in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery at Concord. Thoreau's fame will rest on Walden, or Life in the Woods, and The Excursions, though he wrote nothing which is not deserving notice. Up to his 30th year he dabbled in verse, but he had little ear for metrical music, and he lacked the spiritual impulsiveness of a true poet. His weakness as a philosopher is his tendency to base the laws of the universe on the experience-born, thought-provoked convictions of one man, himself. His weakness as a writer is the too frequent striving after antithesis and paradox. If he had all of his own originality without the itch of appearing original, he would have made his fascination irresistible. As it is, Thoreau holds a unique place. He was a naturalist, but absolutely devoid of the pedantry of science, a keen observer, but no retailer of disjointed facts. He thus holds sway over 2 domains. He had the adherence of the lovers of fact and the children of fancy. He must always be read, whether lovingly or interestingly, for he has all the variable charm, the strange saturninity, and the contradictions, austerity, and delightful surprises of nature herself.